And then I saw my parents deeply apologizing. "I'm so sorry for bringing you to this shabby place." My mother, Teresa, started while bowing her head. "We are truly grateful." My father, Everett, continued, also bowing. They had no idea that the person they turned to as the savior of their struggling factory was the employer of the daughter they abandoned in the freezing mountains. "Please, raise your heads." When I encouraged them to do so, they looked up, confused by the familiar voice. "Kendall!" Their surprised and frantic expressions were so comical. Now, how should I handle this? "I am Kendall. Even though I live in the central part of Seattle, the only bustling area is around the station, and there are many farms near my house. My family used to run a small blacksmith shop making and repairing farm tools, but my great-grandfather started manufacturing agricultural machinery parts, and now we run a fairly large factory. Well, our family is quite famous around here. My father, Everett, is the president of the company. My mother, Teresa, is the executive vice president. I have a brother named Gilbert. From childhood, he was smart and always the pride of our parents. As the eldest son, he was expected to achieve great things and indeed did, getting into a prestigious high school with excellent grades. Our parents showered Gilbert with love, often to an excessive degree, while I was neglected, a shadow in the family. In conservative Dallas, girls were expected to eventually leave home. Compared to Gilbert, who was to inherit the family business, my future seemed bleak. There's no future for a girl who won't inherit the family business. Once you graduate high school, that's the end for you, my dad said coldly. As a middle schooler, I recognized my position and decided to focus on studying hard. However, it was tough to set clear goals in middle school. I have to keep moving forward. That thought alone kept me going. My brother Gilbert and I were stark opposites, almost unbelievable as siblings. Gilbert was a leader at school, like a captain steering a great ship. On the other hand, I preferred physical activities over studying, running around the hills of Dallas like an antelope, or perhaps more like a goat. If there was one glimmer of hope, it was that I had slightly better athletic abilities than Gilbert. But fate was cruel. Despite my efforts in studying, my grades barely improved, which only made my parents scoff. "No way, you're nothing like Gilbert. Don't you realize how inferior you are?" Those words pierced my heart like ice, and I glared at my parents in anger. Even if they were right, it still hurt. One day, I got back my results from a midterm test at school. I had put in a lot of effort, but the results were devastatingly bad. I wanted to keep this to myself, but my parents demanded to see the scores. When they saw the results, they laughed at me. "Indeed, Gilbert is the one to rely on. It's a waste to spend any more money on you." "Absolutely. It's almost like there's been some mistake, considering you share the same genes as Gilbert." Sitting before them, being scolded, I could only pray for it to end quickly. At that moment, Gilbert came over to help me with my studies. Though he was not good at expressing his feelings to our parents, he was always kind to me. "Maybe part of why they are hard on you is my fault. But know this, I'm always on your side." His warm words brought tears to my eyes. With his support, I felt I could overcome any difficulty. And so, I entered my second year of middle school. Gilbert had been accepted into a prestigious university in Boston and had left home to start a new chapter in his life. His room was now empty, leaving me with the pressure of constantly being compared to him. He was naturally talented and always shone brightly. I was trying to find my own path in the shadow of his light. I found my passion in running rather than flipping through study pages. I joined the track team at school. I loved running so much that I decided to aim to become a long-distance runner. I worked hard, dreaming of getting recommended to a top marathon school. Gilbert excelled academically but was terrible at sports. That was the one area where I could surpass him. However, my parents were more enthusiastic about Gilbert's test scores than my running times. My efforts went unnoticed, while Gilbert's constant achievements were always celebrated. When he turned 20, our parents threw a grand celebration. Relatives gathered, and luxurious dishes were served at a well-known local restaurant. But I was left at home as if I didn't deserve to be there. Gilbert is excellent, so he deserves to eat delicious food. You're always running around. Being with Gilbert would only make you feel miserable. Teresa's words pierced my heart. I saw my parents and Gilbert off and drank soup alone in the house. I poured hot water, and the steam rose. The warmth of the steam only highlighted the coldness in my heart. Sadness and frustration intertwined, and I couldn't stop crying. During the summer, when Gilbert was home, he opened the door to the internet world for me. He had graduated from university and joined a major company. As a working adult, he suddenly seemed more mature. "I'm giving you this laptop. It's an old model, but it's good enough for internet use. I hope you can use it for your studies," he said with a smile, handing me the laptop. "And here, try studying with this," he said, giving me an introductory book on programming. This was my small step into the vast sea of IT. Honestly, I wasn't good at science and math, but creating programs turned out to be surprisingly fun. I used the laptop almost every day. Seeing a program I made work gave me immense joy. And I started to get a vague idea of what I wanted to aim for. It wasn't something concrete yet, but I felt like I was gradually seeing the outline. However, one day, that dream was abruptly shattered by Everett. Playing on the computer again instead of studying? I'm not playing. I'm making programs. Don't lie. You're just gaming, aren't you? Annoyed by his words, I replied, somewhat tauntingly. Unlike Gilbert, old-fashioned people like you don't understand how to use computers. This ignited my father's anger. What did you say? How dare you talk back, Kendall? He snatched the laptop, opened the window, and threw it outside. How could you do that? That's what you get for playing games all the time as a high school student. Now you can't use the computer anymore, so focus on your studies. I glared at Everett, who was smirking, and went outside to retrieve the laptop. The laptop, smashed against the ground, had a cracked screen and was damaged. It wouldn't even turn on, rendering it completely useless. Just when I had started to find joy in programming and was beginning to see a hopeful path for my future. As I gazed at the broken computer parts scattered around, a wave of sadness washed over me. Gilbert had given it to me, but now it was ruined and completely useless. I didn't have the money to fix it, and it felt like my new hope was slipping away. Facing the wreckage of the broken computer, I stood on the edge of despair. Gilbert's precious gift had been destroyed beyond repair. Without the funds to fix it, I couldn't find a new source of hope. However, just as the burden of heading to school grew heavier, a friend extended a lifeline. The suggestion to use the school's computers was supported by the teachers, and my free time after school became my new sanctuary. The presence of the desktop, fixed in place, was a stable foundation I could rely on. As I spent more time with the school's computers, even on weekends, the teachers noticed my passion and offered further support. I immersed myself in the world of programming. Throughout my high school life, I steadily honed my skills. Then came summer vacation. Invited by Gilbert, I decided to participate in a summer course in Boston. I covered the travel expenses with money earned from part-time jobs. I stayed at the dorm of Gilbert's company, attended courses during the day, and in the evenings, he and his friend Vernon provided special lessons. He's a bit of an oddball, but I assure you he's not a bad person. Just don't tease him too much. He went to an all-boys school and isn't very familiar with girls. What are you saying? I've held hands with a girl before. Oh, really? When was that? Recently? During the folk dance in elementary school. His charmingly naive reply made me burst out laughing. Vernon's innocence added a colorful touch to our summer moments. With smiles all around, my passion for programming only grew stronger. At the end of summer, a new chapter in my life began. Thanks to Gilbert and his friend Vernon, I stepped into the world of programming and became captivated by its allure. Vernon, though different from Gilbert, was well-mannered and polite. Indeed, he was a bit eccentric, but he didn't seem like a bad person, and I started to like him a little. As I approached the end of my high school years, I faced another summer. I had previously apologized to Gilbert for the broken computer, but during the Obon holiday, he secretly brought me a second-hand laptop. It was a gift from Vernon. Vernon's pretty well off. I asked if he had any spare computers, and he gave me this one, he said with a mischievous smile. When I told him I wanted to give it to Kendall, he brought it over right away. Seems like he likes you quite a bit. What are you talking about? Blushing, I replied, and Gilbert laughed, patting my head gently. Gilbert also gave me various pieces of advice, and my programming skills improved dramatically. I never expected you to be interested in programming, Kendall. Well, it's fascinating. If you get the numbers wrong, it behaves unexpectedly, and it's so rewarding when it finally works after all the thinking. For me, programming wasn't just a hobby. It was my passion, and the joy of seeing my programs come to life was unparalleled. With that passion, I resolved to leave home. I let go of any lingering feelings about college and decided to take a job in Seattle. I chose to carve my own path. With a new computer in hand, I began moving steadily towards my future. My journey of honing my programming skills and pursuing my dreams was far from over. One cold winter day, while I was packing for a new chapter in my life, my parents called me. I thought it would be something unpleasant as usual, but to my surprise, they had an unexpected proposal. How about going on a family trip? Said Dad. A family trip was a distant memory from my childhood. My uncle had given us hotel vouchers he had won in a lottery. I found myself secretly looking forward to the trip, which would include Gilbert, who was coming home. On the day of the trip, we set off in my father's car towards a hotel in a snowy area. My parents, usually quiet, were unusually cheerful. They talked enthusiastically about Gilbert's job, Everett's struggles with the factory's downturn, completely ignoring me. The hotel was more luxurious than I had imagined, with an outdoor bath and delicious food that truly soothed my heart. However, their kindness felt somewhat unnatural. Late at night, when I got up to use the bathroom, I overheard my parents whispering in their room. "We can't afford to feed him anymore. If we leave her, she'll understand." Yes, a big cleanup. They were discussing plans to kick me out of the house. I'm being abandoned by them. I had no choice but to brace myself for this reality. On the way back, feeling a bit gloomy. The atmosphere in the car was silent, everyone too tired to talk. I was supposed to be dropped off at the station, from where I would head to my new job in Boston. Suddenly, Everett. I could use some coffee. Is there a vending machine around? Spoke up. Gilbert replied. There's a parking area up ahead. We can buy some there. Everett gave a strange smile. All right, let's take a break there. Soon, we saw the parking area sign. Kendall, go get us some coffee. I expected this and got out of the car. heading to the vending machines by the restroom. I bought hot coffee for Everett and Gilbert, lemon tea for Teresa, and milk tea for myself. As I turned back towards the car, I saw Gilbert unloading my suitcase. "This is goodbye. It's a waste of time and gas to take you to the station." "Ha, you were so happy like a puppy when we were nice to you." "It's laughable." "What? The station is still far away. Walk or run?" "You were in the track team. You have plenty of stamina." "No way." "Well, you're on your own from now on." "Yes." Cleanup complete. "You are a huge piece of junk." Gilbert was silent but placed my coat on my suitcase. I stood in the cold mountain parking lot, watching the car drive away. Left behind by my family, I had no choice but to accept my fate. Yet, deep down, I felt this was the beginning of something new. I would take my first step towards a new life from this snowy place. This was the opening of a new chapter in my story. 10 years later, I returned to my hometown. Now, I was working as a project leader at a new company, striving every day. Today, I had a job to visit a factory in my hometown. Honestly, I felt a bit excited. At the same time, the sad memories of that time resurfaced. Eventually, I arrived at a familiar factory. "Kendall!" A familiar voice called out. "Brother!" Gilbert, who had arrived by car earlier, waved and came towards me. "I was worried you might get lost. The area has changed a lot." "Well, GPS guides me now, so it's fine." Gilbert immediately started talking about work. "This project has a lot of expectations from the other party, so be prepared." I smiled challengingly. "Oh my. How long will you be able to keep that attitude? Don't underestimate someone toughened by the Boston air." "You've gotten stronger too," Gilbert said, impressed. "Well, I've been living desperately. I've had to become resilient. Fate brought me and him back together through this job." Gilbert had trained at a major company, started a venture in his specialty of mechanical engineering, and introduced patented products to the world. His designed machinery was seen as a crucial solution for reviving failing companies. Then came the sudden collapse of my hometown's factory. He immediately contacted me and proposed this project. "All right, let's go." I slapped my face to pump myself up and followed Gilbert into the factory. Of course, I couldn't help but smile. As soon as the factory doors opened, a mix of cold air and nostalgia brought back faint memories. It was a scent that quietly knocked on the door of distant memories. Yes, this was my family's factory. And then, a dramatic scene unfolded. Two shadows, prostrating, fell on the dimly lit factory floor. "Welcome. Thank you for coming to such a remote place." Teresa started speaking while bowing deeply. "We heard that you are willing to help this factory that's on the brink of bankruptcy. We're truly grateful. Please accept our heartfelt thanks." Everett continued with his head still bowed to the ground. "Raise your heads. We can't have a conversation like this," Gilbert gently but firmly urged. "No, this is the best way we can show our gratitude. We have to show our sincerity to those who came all the way from Boston." Seeing their miserable state, I spoke up. "Let's start talking business. Please, raise your heads." At that moment, their bodies twitched and then froze. "Ha! This voice sounds familiar." They slowly raised their heads as they spoke. "Yes, it sounds familiar to me too." "It's you!" "No, it can't be." "Is that Kendall? Kendall, is that you?" Seeing their astonished faces, I couldn't help but burst into laughter. "Yes, it seems you finally recognize me. Yes, it's Kendall, whom you abandoned in the snowy mountains that winter.
Why are you here?
Yes, I had become the project leader for a company where Vernon's father was the president. After that incident, Bro's friend Vernon saved me. He knew about your evil plan in advance and made arrangements. I struggled, but I worked hard and reached my current position. By the way, I'm married now, and my husband is the head of the company's business division. I'm here today on behalf of the president to revive this factory. Understand? Back then, Gilbert was outraged by my parents' treatment of me and discussed it with Vernon. Before entering those winter mountains, Gilbert had given me a note. Dad and Mom plan to abandon you during this trip. When the time comes, call this number. As expected, I contacted that number, and Vernon came to pick me up immediately. Vernon had taken a vacation day and waited at a nearby hotel to help me, something I knew even though he tried to hide his embarrassment with a sheepish grin.
Thank you so much for coming to get me.
It's been a while. How have you been? I'm doing the same as always. As you can see, I've been abandoned in these snowy mountains. I feel awful. Saying this, I started to cry. Vernon silently loaded my luggage into the car and let me in. And the company I got a job at in Boston turned out to be an affiliate of the company Vernon's father ran. Thanks to my brother's recommendation and Vernon's kindness, I was able to work at the company while studying for a year, and the following year I got into a night college, juggling both school and work. After successfully graduating from college, I was able to transfer to Vernon's father's company. Utilizing the knowledge I gained in college, I was promoted to division manager in charge of factory management, and I became the leader of a project Vernon was promoting. As I continued to work with Vernon, my respect for him grew into love, and he proposed to me. We got married the following year. Of course, I continued to work. The job I was in charge of was a project to support the reshoring of overseas factories. Due to the recent surge in the dollar and the rising labor costs of local employees, the benefits of overseas production were lost, and it became more cost-effective and efficient to use the latest machine tools domestically. Many companies were rushing to move their factories back home. One day, while I was looking for potential sites, I received a call from Gilbert. He told me that our family's factory was on the verge of bankruptcy. The family factory had been supplying machine parts to a major company, but in an attempt to win orders, they had lowered their selling prices too much, drastically reducing profits and accumulating debt. Let's return to the moment when Gilbert and I set foot in the family factory. When I visited as a company employee, my parents suddenly put on a strong front.
Well, if it's Kendall we're dealing with, there's no need to hold back.
That's right. It's only natural for our own daughter to help us out in a pinch. I looked at my parents calmly. Are you under some sort of misconception?
Huh?
I don't think of you as my parents at all. I intend to handle this purely as business.
You. How ungrateful can you be?
To think you'd become such a heartless daughter. It's sad. My parents, with furious expressions, closed in on me, but I continued to speak calmly. The current state of this factory is the result of your reckless management. All management personnel will be replaced by headquarters staff. In other words, you two are not needed. Dad protested vehemently.
We'll have funds from selling the factory. I can continue running it, can't I?
I shook my head and confronted them with reality. I can't trust you with running this factory. What about the debts? This rescue plan was only possible because of Bro's effort.
That can't be. Then what about our livelihood?
Well, that's your life to figure out. Good luck with that. Now, we'll discuss the details later, all right? As Gilbert and I stood up, my parents slumped to the ground in despair.
Well, that's finally over.
What are you talking about? This is just the beginning, right? This place is going to be a domestic production hub.
With the production management system you created and the latest machine tools I developed, there's no doubt we'll be #1 in the US.
Oh, no.
Huh?
Not #1 in the US, #1 in the world. When I said that, Gilbert burst out laughing. As expected, my parents, who were driven out of the factory, couldn't pay off the debts with the money from the factory sale, and now they're working in a factory in a freezing place to pay off their debts. They asked for money from us many times, but Gilbert and I completely ignored them. However, feeling a bit guilty for doing nothing, I sent them the disposable body warmers I had stockpiled during my college days. It was my ironic way of being a dutiful daughter, left in the cold. Meanwhile, the factory we bought was given new life and, after renovation, it shone even brighter. The new factory has integrated manufacturing, inventory management, and distribution, bringing new jobs to the community and garnering praise from the locals. My husband and I decided to embark on a new project to expand our business division. This involves pitching to foreign companies and supporting business partnerships. Even though we are both busy, we make it a point to visit that mountain hotel a few times a year as a reward. Especially during the snowy season, I can't help but feel a bit tickled when I think about that parking lot. And this year, we visited the place again. What's on your mind? Are you reminiscing again? Vernon, my husband, asked quietly.
Yes, this place is like a treasure chest of unforgettable memories for me.
It's the same for me. This is where it all began. He chuckled softly.
I remember you back then. Despite the heavy snow, your face was all red. Well, your cheeks were red too, just like a child's.
We looked at each other and couldn't help but burst into laughter.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Life is like a book. Perhaps it's fitting that a story of a couple like us fills one of its chapters.
I canceled your reservation only,
Nicole said with a smirk on her face, arms crossed as she blocked the entrance to the restaurant where I had made a reservation. Once again, I was the only one being treated like this. Nicole stood there, grinning from ear to ear, clearly enjoying my misery. I had reached my breaking point. I had endured this treatment for far too long, and I couldn't see the point in putting up with it anymore.
Which department are you from?
I asked, my voice trembling with anger.
Huh?
Nicole looked taken aback by my sudden question. It was my turn to fight back. My name is Emily, and I work for a trading company in the city. I joined the company over 20 years ago, and back then, I had to work incredibly hard to secure a job offer. Ever since then, I've been running non-stop, always putting the company and my colleagues first. Now, I'm a manager in the Human Resources Department. Some of my peers have climbed the corporate ladder faster than me, but I've had to take maternity and childcare leave several times as I have 4 children, which has slowed down my career progression. This difference is particularly evident when compared to Nicole, who joined the company at the same time as me. I first met Nicole back in high school. We ended up in the same class during the summer of our sophomore year, and that's when it all began.
Emily, you're so gloomy, aren't you?
Those were the first words she said to me when she sat down next to me. It's true that I wasn't the most cheerful person, but no one had ever pointed it out to me like that before. And she said it with a straight face, not even a hint of a smile. In other words, Nicole genuinely believed that I was a gloomy person. I could have just brushed it off, thinking that she was the type of person who blurted out whatever was on her mind. But after that incident, Nicole seemed to have decided that I was someone she could tease without consequences, and she started picking on me at every opportunity.
Did you finish the homework? I was too busy to do it, so let me copy yours.
I doubt she ever completed a single homework assignment on her own. She always copied my homework and submitted it as her own, regardless of whether there were mistakes or not. Because she copied my work, we sometimes made the same mistakes, and when the teacher noticed, they would call both Nicole and me to the staff room. Of course,
Emily copied my homework,
Nicole would say. The teacher, without even bothering to check the facts, would yell at me. Back then, teachers were much stricter than they are now, and it was common for them to take a rough attitude towards students who didn't listen to them or follow the rules. Even after that incident, Nicole kept trying to copy my homework, and when I refused, not wanting to go through that experience again, Nicole started bullying me.
It stinks. Doesn't this classroom smell bad? Emily is here, isn't she? Is it because of you?
Nicole said, her disdain for me so obvious that anyone could see it. She no longer cared how much others tried to defend me. If she decided she didn't like someone, she wouldn't be satisfied until everyone else disliked them too. She even started bad-mouthing the people who stood up for me. As a result, the kids who didn't want to be on Nicole's bad side naturally distanced themselves from me. Looking back, I realized that was the only way they could protect themselves, but it was a painful experience for my young heart. When we became juniors, Nicole and I ended up in different classes. I thought I could finally live a normal high school life, but I was completely mistaken. No matter where I was, if Nicole spotted me, she would rush over and make a snide remark.
That hairstyle is so lame. You should stop wearing it. Did you gain weight? Your face isn't much to look at, so you should at least watch your figure. Do you enjoy being expressionless all the time? If you don't smile more, you might never get married.
She didn't need my response, so as soon as she finished speaking, she would quickly turn around and leave. The physical bullying had stopped, but she had started constantly harassing me emotionally instead. I could have ignored it if I tried, but the memories from the previous year would come flooding back, and my mood would sink. I couldn't seem to escape Nicole's curse. I finally managed to get away from Nicole after graduating from high school. I had decided to attend a local state university, while Nicole went to a private university some distance away. I thought I would never see Nicole again, and the harassment and snide remarks would finally stop. Just thinking about it lifted my spirits, and I was able to enjoy a very happy college life. Even if there was a reunion when we were adults, I thought we would both be mature enough by then not to have any unpleasant experiences. Maybe there would come a day when Nicole and I could laugh and talk together. There was definitely a time when I had such faint hopes. However, my reunion with Nicole came much sooner than expected. When I graduated from college and started working at my new company, Nicole was there.
I never thought we'd meet again in a place like this. Let's get along from now on,
she said with a grin. I was devastated. My heart, which I thought had completely recovered, was utterly crushed on my first day at work, and I seriously considered not going back. But since we were in different departments, I managed to keep going. Then, in my 5th year at the company, I married my boyfriend from college, gave birth, and took a leave of absence to raise my child. During that time, Nicole kept advancing in her career, and the gap between us only widened. I was too busy to feel frustrated, as I was constantly juggling work and childcare in my daily life. The company I work for has several branch offices, and it's a rule that the sales department rotates between each branch every few years. Unlike me, who works in human resources, Nicole is in sales, so she has been transferred frequently. I don't know if that's the reason, but she has never been married. Or rather, she's the type who is perfectly fine without getting married. People have different opinions on that matter, so I don't deny it, but whenever there's a company drinking party, she always picks on me.
Marriage is the graveyard of life. Having children is out of the question. I can't believe someone's life ends at the manager level like you,
she says with a smirk. Even though there are other female employees below the manager level, Nicole only sees me. Many people give her cold looks, but she's happy as long as she can blame me.
You don't even have time for yourself, right? You can't study to advance your career. Seriously, marriage and childbirth are meaningless. I'm sorry, you're a manager, right?
She says with a mocking tone. She's really a spiteful person. No matter how old she gets, Nicole remains the same. So, when we become adults during college, it was just my wishful thinking. The moment I gave up on the idea that she would be like this for the rest of her life, I stopped caring about Nicole. Maybe she didn't like that, so she started picking on me more often, but only at drinking parties. We work in different departments, so we don't interact on a daily basis. Being harassed a couple of times a year at drinking parties is not a big deal. I don't know if it's because she can spend money on herself, but I've been jealous of Nicole, who remains youthful no matter how many years pass. However, I've overcome that by reminding myself that people are different, and I am who I am. Even if I envy her, Nicole and I are different people. Naturally, we will lead different lives. Just a slight difference in values can completely change one's life, so there's no need to worry about it. Since I started thinking that way in my mid-30s, I haven't paid much attention to Nicole. However, Nicole's persistent harassment continues. Rather, it seems to be getting worse with each passing year. She's always angry, to the point where I wonder if she's going through menopause.
Hey! Every year, new employees join the company, but why are they all useless? You're doing your job properly in the human resources department, right?
She yells.
Of course. We carefully assess their personalities and make judgments.
I reply calmly. After turning 40, I gradually became stronger and started talking back to Nicole. At first, Nicole was surprised, but recently, a loop has formed where I talk back, Nicole gets even angrier, and I fall silent.
Then why are there only useless people every year? Or are you sending useless people to where I am? Is this harassment?
She shouts, her face turning red with rage.
That can't be true, right? It's only natural that new employees can't do their job well. It's also the supervisor's job to train them.
I respond, trying to keep my composure. However, she doesn't seem satisfied and throws the contents of the glass she was holding onto my head. Nearby employees scream, but I mustn't be fazed by this. It will only make Nicole happier.
I don't want to hear that from you. How dare you talk to me like that? You're just a manager, and I'm going to be the director of the sales department starting next spring. Do you understand your position?
Nicole hissed, her eyes narrowing with disdain.
I'm sorry. I'll be more careful from now on.
I replied, trying to keep my voice steady.
I've always hated that attitude of yours. You put on a calm face and act like you have nothing to do with it. That's why you've always had few friends, isn't it?
She sneered, her words dripping with venom. After saying what she wanted, Nicole sat down in her seat. My colleagues in the Human Resources Department worriedly brought me a towel and said, "Don't let it get to you." But I wasn't even paying attention to her in the first place. If she wants to say something, let her say it. Whether I resist or not, Nicole will just repeat the same thing over and over again. This incident would later be dubbed the Emily-drenched incident. Then, when spring arrived, it was time to make reservations for the annual welcome party for new employees. This party is, of course, for the new employees, but to celebrate, a few people from each branch office participate. Naturally, the most people from the head office participate, and about a dozen or so from each branch office. Most of them are managers to directors, with relatively young employees mixed in. The purpose of having younger employees is to ensure that the new employees can enjoy the welcome party without being too nervous. The idea was that having younger colleagues around might help ease the tension a bit. And when I looked at the list of participants sent from each branch office, I saw Nicole's name. She would naturally be participating since she was becoming a director this spring. I completed the reservations for a total of 100 people, including new and current employees, decided on the seating arrangement, and then sent the list to the participants. With that, my work was done for the time being. The next important task was to successfully finish the entrance ceremony and welcome party. Then, the day of the entrance ceremony arrived. The entrance ceremony is held at the head office, regardless of the branch office assignment. The branch managers from each office gathered there, and it was a grand entrance ceremony with much celebration. After a brief tour of the head office and an explanation of the schedule to a certain extent, it was already evening.
Now, let's move to the venue for the welcome party. Please take your belongings and board the bus,
I announced, my voice carrying over the excited chatter. As soon as I finished my work as the human resources manager, I started preparing for the move without a moment to catch my breath. After confirming that everyone had boarded the bus, we departed. Once we arrive at the venue, the director of the Human Resources Department will take over the proceedings, so my work will be done. This year, we ordered a course from a high-class hotel known for its delicious steak, so all that's left is to enjoy it. Upon arriving at the venue, I confirmed that the new employees were getting off the bus, and then I got off as well. As I looked up, thinking about going to the restroom to touch up my makeup, the person who greeted me was none other than Nicole.
Thanks for your hard work. You can go home now,
Nicole said with a smirk.
What? Wait a minute, what do you mean?
There was no reason for Nicole to tell me to go home. I asked, startled by her sudden words.
Can't you figure it out? I canceled your reservation. That's why I'm telling you that you can go home now,
she said, her voice dripping with condescension. I couldn't understand. Why would she need to do something like that? Because she's always hated me? Or was there another reason?
I can't stand the thought of eating while looking at your face. Just the idea of someone like you being in the same space as this luxurious meal makes me sick. Don't get cocky, okay?
Nicole sneered, her eyes narrowing. I see. Nicole was confident that she was absolutely above me now that she had become a director. Certainly, even though we were in different departments and branches, there was a big gap between a director and a manager. I acknowledged that Nicole had worked hard to advance her career, and I honestly thought it was amazing. But there was no reason for her to do something like this to me. After the previous Emily-drenched incident, not being able to eat the steak, and the harassment that had been going on since high school, it was all too much. I had reached my limit.
Which branch are you from?
I asked, feeling the corners of my mouth turning up. I was sure I had a big smile on my face right now. However, the words that flew out of my mouth were not the kind I usually used. Nicole seemed surprised by this.
Huh?
She said, taken aback. But then, as if she had thought better of it, she returned to her usual stern expression. Rather, she looked as if she was about to say, "What are you talking about?"
What do you mean? Which branch? You in Human Resources should know that best, shouldn't you? Don't tell me you've forgotten that too. It must be tough being someone with such a small capacity,
Nicole said, still looking down on me even in this situation. That made sense. No matter how much someone she had always looked down on talked back to her, she still believed she was above them in the end.
That's true, indeed. Well then, I'll make sure you can never return to the head office. Good luck spending the rest of your life at a branch office,
I said, the corners of my mouth still turned up. I must have accumulated more stress than I realized without even noticing it. Every time I talked back to Nicole, something inside me was being released. I even thought that if this was the case, I should have started talking back to her much earlier. However, I could imagine that it would have been troublesome if I had done so, so in the end, this timing might have been for the best.
What nonsense are you spouting? Make sure I can never return to the head office? You're just a manager, so where do you get off acting so high and mighty? If I tell the director of Human Resources something like that, then...
Nicole began, her words trailing off.
That won't happen. Not anymore,
I said calmly.
huh? I have no idea what you're talking about. What, do you think you've become someone important?
She said, her words growing harsher as she became more and more irritated. It couldn't be helped. I, who had always been obedient, was being more assertive than during the previous drenching incident, and on top of that, I was saying things that made no sense.
I don't think I've become important. I have become important. That's right. I guess it can't be helped if you don't know. After all, you're at a branch office,
I said with a smirk, feeling a sense of satisfaction wash over me.
What? I'm getting really irritated. What are you going to do by making me even angrier?
Nicole hissed, her face contorted with rage.
I'm not going to do anything. Anyway, I want to eat my steak, so I'm going inside,
I said nonchalantly, brushing past Nicole. As she reached out to grab my arm, I deftly avoided her and quickly entered the venue. Ever since we were young, I had always been quick on my feet, while Nicole was slow. It was the same when we were walking. People often said that Emily from Human Resources walked fast, while Nicole from Sales walked slow.
Wait! What do you mean? You've become important? You must be joking!
Nicole shouted, panting and getting emotional as she tried to catch up with me, just as I had predicted. It looked like she was about to start running, so I decided to run ahead to avoid being caught. Thanks to that, I was able to enter the venue first without Nicole catching up to me, only to be greeted by the stern face of the Human Resources Director who said, "You're late." I shrugged my shoulders and glanced behind me. Nicole was completely out of breath, having run with all her might.
This isn't a joke! What's the big idea, making me run like this?
She gasped, her chest heaving. Without responding to or retorting Nicole's words, I quickly sat down in my seat. It seemed that my reservation had indeed been cancelled, but the cancellation happened this morning, and since they had the ingredients, they said they could prepare it right away. After thanking my colleague in Human Resources who had taken care of the troublesome matter, Nicole also took her seat. Seeing that everyone was settled, the director began his speech. The welcome party proceeded smoothly, and just as it was about to end, the president made an appearance. I could see the faces of the new employees, who had been loosened up by the alcohol, tighten with tension. I felt bad for them, but it couldn't be helped since the president was also working.
Sorry I'm late. Did you enjoy the meal?
The president asked, his voice soft and gentle. At his words, the faces of the nervous new employees began to relax. They responded cheerfully, and the president seemed satisfied.
Well then, I'm sure you'll face many hardships from now on, but I want you to do your best. For your bright future,
he said, raising a glass he had picked up nearby. Everyone raised their glasses as well, ready to toast. But just as I thought we were about to drink, what flowed vigorously onto my head was wine. Screams erupted from the employees around me. The new employees were also shocked. They probably never thought they would encounter such a harsh reality of society at their own welcome party. In fact, even I couldn't have imagined something like this happening. I didn't need to turn around to know who had done it.
You better explain what this is all about,
Nicole demanded, her voice trembling slightly with rage. Of course, Nicole was the only one who would do something like this to me. Moreover, her voice sounded quite angry and was shaking a little. Suppressing the urge to be dumbfounded that she would still pour wine on me even while trying to contain her anger, I turned to face her.
Nicole, what do you think you're doing?
I asked, trying to keep my composure.
How can you say that with a straight face? Have you already forgotten what you said to me earlier?
She retorted, her eyes flashing with fury. I see. It seems Nicole is quite tenacious. She's acting as if everything she's done to me up until now never happened, and she can't forgive what I said to her earlier. The fact that she's still angry like this even after enjoying the party means she must be really furious. Thinking that she's the type to hold a grudge, I wiped my face with the towel brought to me by the restaurant staff. However, Nicole even snatched that towel away and glared at me.
What are you doing while I'm talking? Answer my question. What was that all about? You become important? Stop with the ridiculous jokes, will you?
She snarled, her face contorted with rage. My face was still soaking wet, but there was nothing I could do about it. I stood up and looked Nicole directly in the face. In that gap, I could see the director tactfully sending the new employees home beyond Nicole. Thinking it was a good decision, I said.
I wasn't trying to do anything. I was just stating a fact. I'm asking because I don't understand what that fact is. You can't even comprehend that? Seriously, have you not grown at all since high school?
Nicole sneered, her lips curling into a mocking smile. I wanted to say, "That's you, isn't it?" but I restrained myself and carefully chose my words. I might be out of line for doing something like this, but this is a high-class hotel restaurant. If I make any more blunders like raising my voice even louder, I might get banned from entering. The food, the steak, and the wine were all delicious, so I wanted to use this place again next year if possible. That's why I had to avoid getting banned at all costs.
Anyway, let's get out of here. We're causing trouble for the restaurant staff,
I said, trying to defuse the situation.
That has nothing to do with me. I'm not moving from here until I hear an explanation from you.
Nicole declared stubbornly. She really is a persistent person. I wonder what she thinks about everything she's done to me up until now. I wasn't calm enough to deal with her childish selfishness. The muscles in Nicole's face twitched slightly, and she might be holding back a little, but everyone here probably thinks that Nicole, who ruined the atmosphere, is in the wrong. As I was wondering what to do, someone placed a hand on my shoulder.
What's going on here?
A familiar voice asked.
President?
I exclaimed, my eyes widening in surprise. Finally, Nicole took a step back from me. Just a moment ago, her face was so close to mine that I thought she might stick to me, so I could finally take a deep breath. Glancing to the side, I saw the president standing there with a calm expression.
I'm asking what this is all about,
he said, his voice maintaining a calm composure, yet somehow sounding cruel. The president might be irritated that the welcome party, which he thought would end on a good note, had turned into this kind of atmosphere. Well, you see, Emily has been looking down on me. She said that even though I'm a director, I'm just at a branch office. She said that even though she's just a manager, she's at the head office, so she's above me. Nicole stammered, her eyes darting around nervously. Here we go, I thought. She had always been exceptionally good at making excuses since high school. It seems she's still very good at blaming me, even after becoming a working adult. The president looked at me, so I denied it.
I don't think the Emily I know would ever do something like that,
he said, his brow furrowing slightly. That's not true. She's actually a cunning person. Even if she's in the wrong, she blames others. She's that kind of person. We've been together since high school, but it seems she hasn't changed. Nicole insisted, her voice rising in pitch. It's like she's introducing herself. She's not considering at all that she's the kind of person she just described. This must be what it means to be dumbfounded and unable to say anything. No matter what I say, Nicole will probably make excuses, and I was already tired of getting involved.
I see. So, you're saying that you were looked down upon by Emily, right?
The president asked, his eyes narrowing slightly. Yes. I've been troubled by her lies ever since high school. To think that it would continue even after we became adults. Nicole said, dramatically covering her eyes. It's a fake cry. Everyone here probably thinks so. The employees here have had at least some involvement with Nicole. In other words, everyone knows she's lying.
Are you talking about yourself?
The president asked, his voice calm but cutting.
What?
Nicole said, surprised, removing her hand from her eyes. As expected, she wasn't crying at all, and her makeup wasn't smudged.
Wait a minute. Were you listening? I'm talking about Emily. I'm not talking about myself,
she exclaimed, her face flushing with anger. She's probably the kind of person who has never once thought that she's in the wrong. Yet, she must have been shocked to be asked by the president if she was talking about herself.
I never thought you would say something like this. This is already a respectable insult. I'll sue you,
she declared the moment she thought he didn't believe her. She's even saying such things to the president. I wonder if she understands her position. No, she probably doesn't understand, which is why she can have this attitude. Besides, Nicole must have an incredibly good outward appearance. The fact that Nicole boasts the top sales performance in the sales department is probably thanks to her eloquence and good looks. It's frustrating, but Nicole is good at her job. However, even considering that, Nicole's attitude within the company was unacceptable.
Actually, I've been getting complaints from employees. They say they're being harassed by an employee named Nicole,
the president said, his eyes fixed on Nicole. Nicole glared at me. She probably thinks I said it, but she's completely mistaken.
Even though they refuse, she keeps persistently inviting them to meals and asking them personal questions on a daily basis. They say it doesn't work even when they ask her to stop,
he continued, his voice stern. Nicole's face changed color. It seems she realized I wasn't the one saying it. However, she still doesn't seem to know who is saying such things, so she looks around with a suspicious look on her face. Then, a male employee walked up to us.
I never thought you would say something like this. This is already a respectable insult. I'll sue you,
Nicole exclaimed, her voice shrill with anger.
Cody? Why?
She said, her eyes widening in surprise.
What do you mean, why? I always tell you, don't I? I have a girlfriend. I can't do anything that would make her insecure, right?
Cody said, his brow furrowing. Nicole's face turned pale. The employee named Cody, who had approached us, was a sales representative working at the same branch office as Nicole. He had just joined the company as a new employee last year and was still very much a newcomer.
But, I mean, you used to go out with me when I invited you to meals at first,
Nicole said, her voice trailing off.
That's because you were my superior. I thought it was just a social interaction as working adults. I never thought I would be invited so frequently,
Cody said, shaking his head. For this employee, who has a reputation for being friendly, to say this much, Nicole must have been quite persistent in her invitations. I think it must have been a real nuisance. Shocked by the betrayal, Nicole sat down on the spot.
And you know what? We're getting complaints from clients too. They're saying they're having trouble because our employees are being seduced,
the president added, his expression grim. Nicole's shoulders shook. There must be something that comes to mind for her. There's no need to specifically mention it, but just saying that much is as good as saying it's true.
Who cares about that? My story doesn't matter. Right now, I want to know the truth about why Emily said she's more important than me. And why is Cody, who just joined the company, talking to the president so casually?
Nicole cried out, her voice rising in pitch. She probably didn't like being the only one blamed. She tried to shift the focus back to my story. However, the president casually revealed the truth about that as well.
What, you didn't know? I thought I had properly explained it to the other employees, but did the email not reach you?
He asked, raising an eyebrow.
Huh, email?
Nicole said, her eyes widening in confusion. Yes, email. I'm stepping down as president this fiscal year. I just found out I have an illness. I'm going to focus on treatment, the president explained, his voice calm and matter-of-fact. Nicole still doesn't seem to understand and is getting flustered. It's the president's fault for not saying much, but Nicole's lack of perception is also a problem. I provide an additional explanation to Nicole.
The president is being replaced. I'm still an apprentice, but I'll be working as the acting president for the rest of this year,
I said, looking Nicole directly in the eye. Nicole jumped up and rushed towards me. She was so close that if I waited any longer, she might have stuck to me.
Don't joke around. Why would someone like you be the acting president? Don't tell me you seduced the president. Otherwise, there's no reason for you to become the acting president out of nowhere,
she exclaimed, her face contorted with disbelief and anger.
You didn't know even though you were classmates? Emily is my niece. I didn't have any children, so I decided to entrust this company to Emily, my brother's daughter,
the president explained calmly, his gaze unwavering. Nicole was at a loss for words. She probably never thought that the president and I were related. I never thought I would actually become the president, and I had never told anyone that my uncle was running the company.
So, Emily is really going to be the president?
Nicole asked, her voice trembling slightly.
That's right. And Cody, the one you kept persistently inviting, is Emily's nephew,
the president added, nodding his head. This time, Nicole glared at Cody. Cody shrugged his shoulders awkwardly but said clearly,
I'm not acting high and mighty because I'm related to the president. I was really troubled, so I consulted with them. I told them that you wouldn't stop no matter how many times I asked.
It might sound like an excuse, but Nicole's persistence is not normal. You can tell from the fact that she has consistently disliked me since high school. She must have persistently hit on Cody to the point of being fed up with it. Moreover, Cody is a very calm type of person, so he's not the kind of person who would dislike someone like this after just one incident. That's the extent of what Nicole has done.
You became the director of the sales department this spring, right? But that doesn't mean you're the most important person in everything,
the president said, his tone firm but not unkind.
I understand that,
Nicole mumbled, her eyes downcast.
But you don't understand, which is why you persistently hit on him with a face that says the director's word is absolute, right?
The president continued, raising an eyebrow. Perhaps because she suddenly felt embarrassed, Nicole's face turned bright red. She had said so adamantly that she would never get married, but this was her reaction.
It's not just because he's a relative, but as I said earlier, we're getting complaints from clients. As the president, I have to punish you,
the president said, his voice stern. At the president's continued words, Nicole went limp.
Starting next month, you'll be going to a branch office in the countryside. You'll probably never come back, so keep that in mind,
he said, his expression serious.
Wait a minute. Why do I have to go to the countryside?
Nicole cried out, her eyes wide with panic.
Don't look down on the countryside. You should be able to demonstrate your full potential anywhere. After all, you're the top sales performer,
I retorted, a slight smirk on my lips. When I talked back, Nicole glared at me while biting her lip. She probably wanted to jump at me in a rage, but with the president there, she couldn't go that far.
Now you won't have to see my face that you hate so much,
I said with a smile. At that, Nicole finally collapsed with a look of despair on her face. Seeing her like that, the president called out to the restaurant staff and had them help Nicole up and take her away. In the end, she couldn't walk on her own and left the venue as if she were being dragged. Afterwards, Nicole was officially transferred to a branch office in the countryside, but she refused.
If I have to go to a place like that, I'll quit this company,
she declared, her voice filled with frustration and anger. For her, going to the countryside must have been that much of a blow. She might have thought that with her achievements, she could get a job anywhere, but in this circle, it had spread that Nicole was quite a schemer in a bad way. She was probably the only one who didn't know that, and it would be difficult for her to find another job. Moreover, because she caused the Emily-drenched incident twice, rumors had apparently spread in the restaurant circle as well. Since she has a pretty face and stands out, people will probably find out quickly. In the end, she chose to stay here instead of going to the countryside, but she struggled with the difficulty of living in this area and returned to her hometown. Every time she sees my mother at the supermarket or grocery store, she reportedly snaps at her, saying,
"It's all because of your daughter."
But my mother apparently handles her appropriately. Until now, she seemed to care so much about her appearance that you'd wonder how much she spent on beauty, but now she doesn't seem to have that kind of leeway. Her face is covered in spots, you can see some gray hair, and she apparently wears a gray, worn-out sweatshirt and spacing out in the park every day. From her perspective, it's as if she lost her greatest purpose in life. By the way, I billed her for the cleaning fee for the clothes that got dirty in the second drenching incident, but she still hasn't paid, so I'm thinking of going to see her with a business card that says Acting President. My husband laughed and said I have a bad personality, but considering everything that's happened until now, this is the least she can do to satisfy me. I'm now busy every day as the acting president. I realize how difficult being the president is and feel proud of my uncle. Cody was also happy that now that Nicole was gone, he could work vigorously without feeling suffocated. As the future president, I'm determined to continue creating an environment where everyone can work comfortably, and I intend to keep living each day to the fullest.